Always play it down. I still like playing it down.
Well, we've all heard that. The President of the United States openly admitting that he downplayed the severity of the coronavirus. That explosive recording of President Donald Trump was the first indication that Bob Woodward's new book, Rage, this one, was going to transform the U.S. election campaign, and it has, with Trump's admission becoming a key controversy in that election campaign, just one of many. Bob Woodward hardly needs an introduction, though. He became a household name after he and his reporting partner Carl Bernstein at the Washington Post broke the Watergate scandal back in the 1970s, which forced President Richard Nixon to resign. Woodward has since published 20 books about multiple presidents, Supreme Court judges, the CIA. Rage is his second book about Donald Trump, and to write it, he interviewed the president 17 times. On the record, he recorded 16 of them with Donald Trump's consent. So after all of that, why does he conclude that Donald Trump is the wrong man for the job? Let's find out. Joining me now is the author of Rage, Bob Woodward. Mr. Woodward, great to have you back on the program. I got to start with the pandemic, obviously, which, as you write in the book, is the biggest challenge to face the Donald Trump presidency. Were you shocked when he told you on the record that he, quote, deliberately played down the severity of the threat of COVID-19?
Well, I was in the process of trying to figure out where and when he learned and got a detailed briefing. And back in May and in June, I finally established that that was at the end of January. So that was much more alarming. He received the detailed, not only a warning, but it was hey, a catastrophe is coming. He was told it was going to be like the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic that killed 675,000 people in this country. And so he failed to exercise his duty to protect the people.
Since that interview, the president has contracted COVID-19. He's now, as you well know, he's recovered. Have you seen a change in his attitude or his views or his approach to the pandemic?
Well, he's much more cavalier about it. He's publicly said, getting it was a blessing from God. Imagine somebody saying it is a blessing to get a disease like the coronavirus, COVID-19, when 215,000 people in his country that he is supposed to lead have died of it. It is almost inconceivable. And his indifference, the cavalier attitude of, don't be obsessed by the virus. Don't let it get you down. And then him saying he feels great, hasn't felt better in 20 years. It's really an understatement to say this is Orwellian. It's almost unbelievable. But outrageous things happen each day, and so you forget what happened 5 or 7 days ago, let alone 10 months ago. But it's all of a piece, and it is a history of presidential negligence on a scale which, as I've written about presidents for 50 years, have never seen.
Has Donald Trump changed the president? You keep saying it's unprecedented, it's Orwellian. Has he changed how Americans and maybe the rest of the world perceive the office of the presidency and the president of the United States?
Yes, he has, quite dramatically, and I'm not sure the institutions in this country, the political system, the business community, the media world knows how to deal with him.
What's the profile? If you were to describe Donald Trump, he describes himself as a stable genius. You spoke to his former Secretary of State Tillerson, his former Secretary of Defense General Mattis. You've spoken to hundreds of people about him. How would you describe a profile of Donald Trump, and how is he different from other presidents?
He is singularly focused. He acts on impulse, not on plans. That's why so many people left the administration in a state of genuine sorrow and disappointment about his leadership. As you know, you need a plan, and he just does not plan. And so we are now in a state 3 weeks away from the election. He has attacked the electoral process. He has literally said, we're not going to have, I cannot guarantee, Trump, guarantee a peaceful transfer of power. He has attacked, I mean, think of this. The President of the United States has declared war on democracy. If somebody had told me this 5 or 6 years ago, he would have a president who's doing the things that he's done, I would say they're taking some sort of drug to talk or think like that. We are in that world right now.
Bob Woodward, to hear you say that, I mean, you're very concerned about the transition of power, what's going to happen in these last 3 weeks, which is stunning to me. In the meantime, you talk about that concentration of power. The president of China, Xi, has told his troops in the last week to prepare for war. There's a lot of heated rhetoric there over the Straits of Taiwan. Are you concerned? What is the geopolitical potential here, Mr. Woodward? Are you concerned that things could get a little dangerous?
Well, things are dangerous. The president is commander-in-chief of the military, essentially can decide whether we go to war all by himself. There are lots of hot spots in the world. You mentioned Taiwan, the South China Sea, where there is a naval operations going on by the Chinese. United States Navy will test the right to transit, freedom of the seas, and something could spin out of control. I think one of the key qualities for a president is the capacity to listen and weigh and understand what people are saying. You may not agree with everyone, but Trump just runs right over everyone. I think it's one of the most dangerous times in American history.
You talked a lot about systemic racism, Black Lives Matter, white privilege. Your country, right. Many countries are very divided by this. It's very divisive. There's been lots of accusations of him talking, sort of trolling white supremacists. What's your view on that? Some people say he's the least racist person. Some people have accused him of essentially being a white supremacist. You've talked to him. What did you get from that?
I try to avoid labels, but try to describe behavior. Black Lives Matter really became one of the stories of the day. And I asked Trump, I said, Mr. President, you are someone who came from a world of white privilege like me. Is it not incumbent on us to understand the pain and anger that black people feel? And it's right on the tape. We've played it. And Trump said, oh, wow, you sure drank the Kool-Aid, Bob. I don't feel that way at all. And you can hear the tone of his voice is he's mocking me for saying, I think we have an obligation to understand the pain and anger of black people.
You've interviewed every president. If you had to rank them, where would Donald Trump rank in terms of all the factors that make it an effective, a good president? I know you end the book saying he's the wrong man for the job. Where would you rank Donald Trump, sir?
I mean, it's a very good and important question for history and for political science. I don't think people sit around and say, gee, is this worse than Nixon? Is this better than that? I think they want to say, they're saying, wait a minute. And I talked to Trump about this. How is this affecting my life? What's going on? Do I have somebody in the presidency who's looking out for me? And I asked Trump extensively. I said, what's in it for somebody out there in the population, a worker or anybody, male, female, anywhere in the country? What's in it for them if you are reelected? And he will spout some platitudes, but I think if you look at it objectively, and I'm not a partisan, I'm not a Democrat, not a Republican. My conclusion is based on overwhelming evidence and my commitment to not be silent in the face of this overwhelming evidence.
You've written, as you write, the first draft of history. Bob Woodward, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. The new book, Rage, fascinating study, 17 interviews with Donald Trump. Thanks for taking the time, Bob. I really appreciate it.